Hello all, hope you're doing well today. So we are now firmly into December and not far from 2026, and I personally love this time of year. Number one, you have the run into Christmas, which I always enjoy, but things always get a bit hazy at the end of the year, at least they do for me. December comes with many temptations. We're often busy, seeing friends and family. Work is busy before we end the year. But it does provide us that opportunity to really take stock and have a moment of exposition. What do we need to let go of? What do we need to move towards? And it's really important here to be deeply honest with ourselves. It's not necessarily a moral reading of ourselves we're giving. It's more just as if we were giving advice to a beloved friend, something like that. If we can take our own ego out the way and just be honest, I find these times quite spiritually healing. If you like, that's the spiritual work on the horizontal path, that it's called. As in routine, structures, planning for the future, reading from the past, these sorts of things. This is lower level spiritual work because it's to do with mind ideas and so on. But it's still very important, and I think we can sometimes forget it in the spiritual life because we focus more on the vertical, that is the presence of being now, in religious language, abiding with God, that would be. And that is, more powerful. But I personally believe that we have a complete lack of structure in understanding this in the modern era. And very often people will sort of want to go to enlightenment, after watching a few Eckhart Tolle videos or whatever. And they don't really understand that every tradition has given men a path of purification, often over years, sometimes decades, in order to understand that teaching. There's lots of mess inside of us we often have to clear up. Guilt, fear, pain, anger, whatever else. We have to work through each of these things. But as we do so, we learn and grow ourselves. We realize these things are our teachers, nothing external to us. Now, this, in many ways, is a bit of a insight into the plans I have on the Substack for 2026. I want to do much more content like this. I want to provide a sort of spiritual order for men where they can have discipline and structure for their horizontal lives, something that you can tap into on a weekly basis. And in turn, that creates that inner spiritual freedom within. And I don't think anything really can compare to that because it's not worldly. It's just a knowing that you're aligned, which is a beautiful thing. And I speak from personal experience, having been through these experiences to find it. And it's certainly changed my life completely and certainly changed how I thought about life. As I've said many times, nothing in the external world can really satisfy you like the spiritual can. And again, I speak from personal experience with that. I've had periods in my life where I've been poor, periods in my life where I've been doing quite well. But I realized over time that what matters more is your spiritual state. Now, I don't want to get too hippy-dippy. I understand we have to work hard, especially if we have families. I understand a lot of people have aims in the world, and that's fine, as long as you're not dominated by those aims. Like lovely Leonard Cohen lyric, when he talks his dreams to sleep. I always used to resonate with that when I was a bit lost in my mind. If you attempt to talk your dreams to sleep, it's got a bit out of control. But if it's something that's calling to you and you want, some success in the world, I don't personally see that as a problem, again, unless you're being dominated by it. But anyway, as I say, I think this video will hopefully provide a bit of structure for you and your plans for the new year. It's a great time to start thinking about these things, not religiously and not hammering hours upon hours, but just contemplating things slowly, letting the answers reveal themselves. And personally, again, it's a really good time to do it before the real hype of Christmas kicks in, because having been involved in many men's groups over the years, a lot of fellas can start to feel quite a strong drift, and it's easy to fall into lots of trapdoors around Christmas. There's all sorts of temptations flying around, as I say, and our normal structures can fall apart. Again, I'm not saying this for a judgment type energy. I'm saying it because it's just worth recognizing what's coming ahead of us and going through it consciously and planning for that new year, because I always like the new beginning, really, something to freshen up and tighten up. Now, as I say, what I want to do in the future in the Substack, the area for the members, is have something which speaks to the horizontal dimension of our lives and the vertical, because most men only try and fix one or the other. Very often we're not aligning both, and that would be the cross, esoterically understood. We have the vertical line and the horizontal line, and the meeting point is life itself. And again, I know from my own experience many times over the years, it's easy to fall out of sync with that. Maybe I'm just not being conscious and present. Maybe I'm not doing my prayer and meditation. Maybe it's something more about getting lost in the horizontal life, chasing something and just not stopping, getting lost in my head. That can easily happen. And again, it can happen around key dates in the calendar. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because I want to move towards a bit more depth, a bit less noise, building that spiritual order for men, and structuring a lifestyle for men around discipline, contemplation, and brotherhood. A clear direction that I'm now providing with all of this work I'm doing. If you will, it will be something like the main channel is the problems with modernity. This channel is the cure to those problems, and the Substack becomes the path for those men who are really dedicated and really want to go on that spiritual journey. Now, I would say just for now, there are a few questions we should all be asking ourselves before the end of the year. And I will be doing this on a weekly basis in 2026 on the Substack on a live call. But again, with that, I think we'll probably read some key spiritual texts. We have to decide on the last call of the year for the community what we'll read, but it could be the New Testament, it could be text from traditionalism, it could just be key spiritual quotes. We can discuss that down the line. But in lieu of that, I think it's worth, before we get to the end of the year, asking those big questions. Is there anything I'm holding on to that I need to let go of? Could be a relationship, could be a memory of an old girlfriend, could be something that has riled you up from the past. And when we say put down, we understand these things might be a process for you to let go of certain things, but bringing consciousness to it is about 50% of the battle. When we become aware of things that aren't really serving us, whether they're, again, memories from the past or things here and now or behaviours we're locked into, the simple consciousness around it is 50% of the battle. And with that, it leads us to the next question. What needs to be built? What do I need to move towards? What sort of people do I need to move towards? What sort of work do I need to move towards? What about my marriage or marriage in the future? Who do I have to be to show up in that? Same with our lives as fathers or would-be fathers down the line. Who do I want to be? What do I need to learn? So some key themes there that have been very impactful on me in the past few years. I've been trying to do all sorts, from the basics of learning DIY. I was always more of a reader and philosopher type, so just never really bothered with DIY. But the past few years I've done as much as I possibly can, because I don't want to be some needy idiot if something goes wrong in the home and I'm having to call people in and spend money. I want to be able to do the basics. On another note, that's a good thing for the community in the Substack in the future as well, so do join in preparation for it, because we're going to have different men who've got different fields of experience and knowledge helping each other out. I think that's really key for the future. And then the big one. This isn't about judging yourself as failing or succeeding, but just what would 2026 look like for you if you took it seriously? Like if you really had a go, what would it look like? And I think it's worth just sitting with these questions, contemplating on them, being open to the answers, letting them deliver themselves. Again, you don't have to do it straight away, but just find yourself a quiet 5 minutes and just contemplate it at some point. And now until the end of the year, you've got about 3 weeks. So there's plenty of time to let those ideas build. You're not trying to force anything. You're trying to let it appear, reveal itself. Some things you'll just know. Perhaps some of us are engaged in behaviours, or we have a problem with anger or anxiety that's just obvious. But some things are a lot more subtle. Some things are a lot more subtle, and you have to give them time to reveal themselves. Quiet contemplation is good for that. Sometimes music can be helpful, or quotes, from wise spiritual masters. Anyway, hopefully this is of use to some of you out there. And as I say, do join the Substack for the big changes come January 1st. And do please come along to the group call. Roughly speaking, that would probably be in about a couple of weeks. It'll be a Christmas end of year call. It should be a bit of fun, but we'll also speak about the big plans starting January the 1st. As always, there's coaching, courses, everything else linked down below. Do join the Substack, as I say, and do subscribe to this channel. Take care, friends. Look forward to speaking with you soon.